This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so Parsha Lech Lecha, let me just say that we are learning in memory of those who were murdered and for a safe and quick release for those who were being held hostage, for a refuah, a healing for those who were wounded, and for a shmirah, a guarding, and a nitzachon, and a victory for all those who are involved and will be involved in the battle that looms ahead. We will not have class next Tuesday. The OU is having a delegation that I'm joining of rabbis who are going to Israel on Sunday, just for the week. Be back, Bezos Hashem, on Friday. And that's to meet with different families and to establish connection between different communities and different families that are grieving over there. To be there with them, for them, and to hopefully establish connections that will give them strength, comfort, and support as we go forward. So I'll be leaving on Sunday, and Bez Hashem returning on Friday. So it's going to be a short trip, but very, very, very busy. I spoke to my son Shraga, who's stationed now in his reserve unit up north. I told him, I'm not going to be able to, it's not a trip for us to go visiting our family and our friends, but he said he might be able to get some time off and join us. So hopefully he can, but yeah. Natalie's coming back tomorrow night. We're like two ships passing in the night this month.
Is she in Israel?
No, her parents weren't well, and they were in New York for many months. They just got back to Florida, so she's there helping them settle in. I think she made a calculation. This is, I think, in our marriage, including when she was doing camp, this is the month that we've been apart the most in our, thank God, decades of marriage. Okay, all for good all doing
Rabbi,
good things. Yes.
on the previous subject, so the LA Times had an article about U.S. Jews see lack of outcry over Hamas's killings, and especially the progressive left of Jewry. And there's a Reform rabbi, a woman, so maybe we wouldn't have as much in common with her, but she said, speaking of the Hamas attacks, she said it was impossible to hear of the deaths of more than 1,400 people without thinking of our multi-generational Holocaust trauma. Our minimum ask is that people give a damn when we die, she said. So, Alla, what you're saying about establishing linkages with families and things, and her name
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Sharon, and that was the
Browse.
last. That
So
was like
Sharon Browse, something like that.
I think so. Yeah, Browse.
Yeah. Yeah. I've met her. Yeah. She's speaking the truth, right?
Right, and that was
We
how they
accept the
ended the
truth from
article,
wherever
like
it
that
comes.
people are so blasé about the hostages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although at the
Yeah.
VPCA gate of the pool in the community center, I saw two postings of two the pictures of two hostages, and please, do what you can.
Yeah. Thank you, Janet. Okay, let's begin Lech Lecha, page 54. Vayomer Hashem al Avram, and God said to Avram, Lech Lecha, go forth, me artzecha, from your land, me moladetecha, from your birthplace, umi beit avicha, and from your father's house, el haaretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you. We spent more time on this in the past, but I just want to mention it briefly. I think it's very, very important, right? So God tells Abraham, and what's going to happen? Amazing. I'll make you into a great nation. I'll bless you. And I'll make your name great. And you become a bracha. Why is God saying this to Avram? Who's Abraham? Who is this guy? All of a sudden, God says to him, leave and you become this great, great nation. Who is he? What has he done? Why him? So let's go back, Cheryl. Let's go back to Noach, and let's hear about Avram. Let's go back to page 50, right? Perik Yud Aleph, Pasuk Chav Zayin, verse 27 towards the bottom. Ve'ela toldo Terach, and these are the generation of Terach. Terach gave birth to Avram, Nachor, and Haran. Okay, fair enough. So we know Avram is the son of Terach, the brother of Nachor and Haran. Haran holided Lot. Haran, his brother, gave birth to Lot. He's the uncle of a guy named Lot. Vayamad Haran, Haran died, al pnei Terach Aviv. Where did that happen? In the land of his birth, in Ur Kasdim. Avram and Nachor took for themselves wives. The name of the wife of Avram, verse 29, is Sarai. And the name of the wife of Nachor was Milcah. The daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Yiscah. Oh, so these were Haran's daughters. Okay? So they're keeping the name of Haran alive by marrying their daughters. Fair enough. Sarah was unable to have children. Okay, sorry to hear that. Terach takes Avram, his son, and Lot, his grandson, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, and they left Ur Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. They came to Haran. They settled there. Terach dies. And now God speaks to Avram and says, Lech lecha, you're the man. You're going to become a great, great nation. Out of left field over here. Out of left field over here. Now, Cheryl. Now that I've deflated whatever you wanted to say.
Okay, well, he didn't say what I was going to say. Well, he destroyed the idols that his father had. Second of all, he went into the furnace because...
Okay, beautiful. So there's a lot of midrashim. Right? The story of breaking his father's idols, and therefore his father complaining to King Nimrod, and King Nimrod saying to him, either bow down to the idol or throw you into a furnace. And he says, I'm not bowing down to the idol. And he got thrown into a furnace, and he came out alive. And actually the brother Haran that we read about who died on Ur Kasdim, why did Haran die? Because Haran was sitting on the fence. Do I go with Nimrod or do I go with Avram? Let's see what happens with Avram. Avram got saved. I'm with Avram. He gets thrown to the furnace. He's not saved because Avram went in there with willing to die. Haran went in there only in order to live. Lots of medrashim. Another medrash that he saw at age 3. At age 3, the pasuk says, Akev, Asher Avram, Akev, being that Avram heard my voice. But the gematria, the numerical value of Akev, right? Every Hebrew letter has its own numerical value. Akev is 70, Ayin, Kuf, 100, Vet, 2, 172. And how many years did Avram live? 175. So Akev, Asher Shama Avram B'Koli, for Akev, he heard my voice. He discovered God at age 3. Wow, that's pretty impressive, right? Another medrash that he was walking along and he saw that there was this tower, this palace that was burning, right? And he said, there's got to be a Baal Habayit, there's got to be an owner in this world. He looked at the world, he said, there's got to be an owner in this world. All these wonderful teachings, but the pasuk doesn't say a stitch about it. We hear he was born to Terach. His brother died. He got married. He traveled. We all like to travel, right? Why is the Torah not telling us a thing about Abraham? All of a sudden we hear God said to Avram, you're going to become a great, great, great nation. Why doesn't it tell us about Avram's journey? Perhaps it's not telling us about Avram's journey because, ooh, so good to see you, right? It's perhaps not telling us about Avram's journey because if we'd hear about Avram's intellectual journey, so a person might say, oh, I'm not such an intellectual. That doesn't speak to me. They're going to hear about Avram going against his father's idols. Oh, I'm more of a pacifist. I don't want to, go against anybody else. They hear about Avram's passion. Oh, I'm I'm not one of these touchy-feely kind of guys. That doesn't work for me, right? Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own path. Everyone has the different things that strike us, that move us. And famously, we always say, Lech Lecha, right? Lech means go, Lecha means to you. What does that mean, go to you? So Rashi explains, go for you. That's how the English actually translates at our school. They adopt Rashi's approach. Hashem said to Avram, go, Lech Lecha, for yourself. You will benefit from this. This is going to be good for you. I'm going to make you into a great nation. Here you won't have children, travel, you'll have, go to where I'm sending you, you'll have, right? This is for you. But others say, Lech Lecha, go to you. In other words, we're all on our journey to become ourselves, the best version of ourselves, right? No two people are alike. Rav Volbe says so beautifully, from the time of creation until the time of Messiah, there will never be another you born to your parents at your time, right? Each one of us is incredibly unique. Lech Lecha, right? Don't try to be someone else. Be yourself. Be the very best version of yourself. How does one become that? We're each so different. We each have different paths and things that motivate us and things that will move us. So you could share something with somebody and they go, and it moved you so much, and they're like, oh, is that all you got? Right? It doesn't do it for them. Right? Personally, when I was in yeshiva, I came across this book from Rabbi Monk, The World of Tefillah, The World of Prayer, I think it's called. A fantastic, fantastic book. And for me, that was, wow, that really helped me turn things around in my own personal life and my own Jewish journey. Years later, I revisited that book, and I thought to myself, it's very nice, it's excellent, a lot of important material, but I was scratching my head, like, what about this actually, was so impactful when I read that when I was, I guess, 18 years old. Like, what about it, right? And right, two possibilities, right? One is that at that point I was looking, I was ready, I was open, and therefore whatever would come into my hand would have been the book, or then that's what moved me. But 5 years later, 10 years later, whatever it was when I revisited, that wasn't what was moving me then. Something else will move me then. Because not only are we each different in terms of what will move us, but what will move us today is not necessarily what will move us tomorrow or 2 years from now or whatever it is. So the Torah does not lock in. This is why Avraham was sent on his journey. To let us know we each need to find what it is that moves us on our journey. And actually, the Zohar over here understands that this is not just a call to Avram, but on a whole different level, a whole different orbit. This is the mission that each of us was sent on. Not each of us will be or are. Each of us was sent on this mission. Because the Zohar says, as we believe in Jewish thought, we all began with our soul up in the Shamayim, up in the spiritual realm. And that's a place of comfort. That's a place of familiarity. That's a place where we know what we need to do. That's a place of absolute clarity. But there, a person cannot, a soul, a neshama, cannot become any better because there are no challenges, there are no difficulties, there are no choices that need to be made. So what happens? The soul is sent, me artsecha, from its land, from its place, umi moladetecha, from where it was born, umi beit avicha, from the house of our father. That's where the soul was, with our Father in heaven. Why? It's sent down to this world in order that we can become better, in order that we can have choices, hopefully make good decisions, make the right choices, though we all sometimes make poor choices. That's just part of being human, right? But that we are sent here in order to, a bracha means an increase. Here we will be able to grow, to become different, to become better. And after 120 years, please God, when we will return there, we will have been that much improved version. Yes, Miri.
So today, Lech Lecha also has connotation of gerush in Hebrew, legaresh. So maybe he was comfortable where he was. And
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Miri said gerush means like expulsion, being sent out. Yeah, and I think that's very true, and that's along the same lines, Mary, that we need to go out of our comfort zone, right? In order to lech lecha, right, we need to be willing to go out of our comfort zone and yeah, and break free of that. Yeah, good, beautiful, right? And that also, right, according to what you're saying, Mary, that also explains another point that's often made, right? That in terms of location, if I'm traveling, Avram is going to first leave the house of his father, and then leave his birthplace, and then leave his land, right? You go traveling abroad, you first leave your house, then you're leaving Orange County, and then you're leaving the United States. But the order here is reversed, because we're not simply talking about a physical leaving, we're talking about a spiritual journey and leaving behind some of the things that have become part of us, leaving that comfort zone and going out into a new world. So if that's the case, Artzecha, right? So I'm an American, right? America has certain influences on me. Even more integral to who I am is I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Queens boy, right? That's where I grew up, right? Even more integral to who I am is mi Beit Avicha, right? I'm a Ciner. I grew up in the Ciner home with my father, my parents, my siblings, and all that went on in that home, right? During all those years. So therefore, if we're talking about leaving physically, you first leave your home and then you leave village, town, and then you leave your country. We're talking about becoming our own person, then it's easiest to leave the American, so to speak, things, the negative parts we want to leave behind, and then to leave the city parts that we want to leave behind, and then the family parts that we want to leave behind. Not to say there aren't many wonderful things about being whoever we are with our families, right, and our country, etc., etc. But it's being willing to leave the negative parts behind. And God says in Pasuk Bet, and I'll make you into a great nation, and I'll bless you, and I'll make your name great. And those who bless you will be blessed, those who curse you I will curse. Unbelievable, right? Now, if you were offered such a deal, right? Here you're not going to have any kids. There you'll have a family. That family will become a great nation. You'll become world renowned, right? And realize Avraham is the person, the one person today, 2023, end of October, that most people in the world will associate with Avram more than any other person in history. Meaning, right, the Christians, right, they'll associate with Jesus. The Muslims will associate with Muhammad, right? The Jews will associate with Moshe, right? But will all associate with Avraham, Abraham, Ibrahim, right? However you want to pronounce it. Will all three major religions will associate with Abraham, with Abraham. So, and that's what God's telling him. V'agadla shemecha, I'll make your name great. Right? We had the Abraham Accords. Right? I mean, Abraham. We're B'nai Avraham. Right? So why is this such a difficult test? Right? We're taught that Avram had his 10 nisyanot, his 10 tests, his 10 challenges. Why is this such a hard test? Right? He gets to take his wife with him. Right? It's not like he's why is this such a challenge? For Avraham. To do that, to do what God's asking him to do, right? We're taught, it says in Ethics of the Father's Big Avot, Avram had 10 nisyanot, 10 great challenges. The first was the medrash that Cheryl had mentioned earlier, that he was willing to be thrown into a furnace. The last one is, according to most commentators, the last one was the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, the willingness to listen to God even when it seemed to be, and when he'd be giving up everything he ever had, right, because of that. And then there are others in the middle and different commentators. Everyone agrees, Lech Lecha, this is one of Avram's great challenges. Why is it such a great challenge?
To leave his country?
Yeah.
Then he will be lonely. He will...
Okay, but what I'm saying is that God had promised him a lot of goodies along with it, right? If someone would say to you, listen, I want you to leave your country, but when you get there, there's a $10 million account waiting for you. You'll be famous, you'll be rich for all generations. You'll be the founder of a nation. You'll be the founder of a nation.
Immigration is always difficult.
I'm sorry? Fair enough. Okay. Allah, immigrated here from Russia, and she could say, immigration is challenging. I hear that. Ora?
I think it all comes to trusting. So
Okay,
if it
that's
is
a nice
a test,
idea.
then
That's
okay,
a nice idea.
yeah, you have all of these waiting for you, but you have to trust that it is
You
so.
have to have the faith that it's going to happen.
And
Okay.
and Rabbi, if you recall, it seems like family values are very important since they both married their nieces, both Nahor and Avram. So to leave your family, even so, with all that that might be a very closely held thing, and
Okay.
that might be very challenging too.
So faith, courage, leaving family behind. Okay. I hear. Yes.
Who is this guy? He hasn't proven himself necessarily. It's like he's an unknown quantity or just a voice in Abraham's head.
Okay. I mean, he walked out of the furnace. So Esther Shulamit said, this God hasn't necessarily proven himself yet, right? I said he walked out of the furnace, but who knows? There are flukes that happen, right? So he hasn't really proven himself yet, and maybe it's just this voice in his head, right? I've had people sit down in my office telling me about their prophecies, and I say, okay, that sounds wonderful, but maybe you should speak to someone about this. Look, other than a rabbi, this might be above my pay count, my pay level over here. Yeah.
But maybe over the time and over the years, and when he was just a toddler child, he developed this emunah, right? This faith, this something greater in his belief. And even when he was younger, he went out there and destroyed the idols, and it's like, this is ridiculous. It's not gonna. He was a special man.
Yeah. He was able to do it. Yeah. Yes, Allah. I'm sorry, Cheryl.
That's partly what I was going to say, but the other part is he recognized Hashem at 3 years old. When Hashem talks to you, if you're not Moshe, then you're going to listen, I think.
Yeah.
Was he 3 years old?
According to one medrash, 3, he already recognized God.
In the cave, right? Was he in
Yeah.
the cave?
I don't know.
No,
I'm not
I
sure.
heard that he was.
It was simple. It's difficult to go against the current. It's difficult to put your side against
Okay.
the rest of the community that you have.
Okay. Right. To swim against the current is always hard. Yes.
It says, I'm going to show you the land. I'm going to take you. It's not like, okay, you're going to leave and you're going to drive to Northern California and there's a hotel there and I've already prepared it for you. It's like he doesn't even know where he's going.
Okay. Good. Esther Shulamit pointed out that what made it, according to the way most commentators learn, is I want you to pack up everything and go. Exactly where you go. And then we'll, right? So that's certainly added to the challenge. They didn't know where he was going to. According to that, it's fascinating that he started to go to the land of Canaan. Right? And he went, right? And he went to the land of, he's going towards the land of Canaan, meaning that was known to be the land, the place. Canaan is present day Israel. That was known to be the place of spirituality, of the ruchniut, of spirituality. Right? It's fascinating that the avodah zarah, the idolatry of the nations in Israel, was so strong and so entrenched. Why? Because when there is this intense spirituality, right, it needs to be expressed either one way or the other way. So Avram knew if God told him to go to this land and didn't tell him where, he started going already to the land of Canaan. But there's another idea, though, it's very important. Let's go back to still on page 54. Vayelech Avram ka'asher diber elav Hashem. Avram went, in English, how's it put it? As Hashem had spoken to him. What do those words teach me? Avram went as God had spoken to him.
He listened, he obeyed.
Okay, simple level, right? He obeyed. Okay. There are others that say, Ka'asher diber elav Hashem, as soon as God said, no hesitation. Ka'asher diber elav Hashem, like whereupon, Ka'asher, not so much as Hashem has spoken to him, but whereupon God spoke to him, he got up and went. But others explain, coming back to the question of why was it such a hard test? Granted, it took courage, it took faith, it took strength, right? But he went not for all of the goodies, not for all of the bounties that had been promised him. Why did he go? Ka'asher diber elav Hashem. Because God had spoken to him. Because God said that he should go. Right? In which case, sometimes the nisayon, the challenge, might not be what we're going to do, but why we're going to do it. Okay? He's going to do it. Is he going because, hey, I've got an account with $10 million waiting for me there? Or am I going because God told me to go? Right? Why am I doing it? Right? We in our Chovas Halvavas class, right? That's our duties of the heart. We do that Monday nights. Right now it's 6:30 till we change the clock. Then it'll be 5:45. So one of the things that we discussed over there is all the things that Hashem is always doing for us, right? And so when it comes to mitzvot, right? Am I doing it for the reward, or am I doing it because God is doing so much for me, right? It's the least I can do is if he asks me to do something, of course I'm going to do it. Not, like we said, pick it up, is don't be like the servant who's serving the master in order to receive the reward, right? But recognize just how awash we are with God's goodness and therefore want to do it. So it's not necessarily what we're doing sometimes, it's what is our intent? Why are we doing it? Yes, Esther.
But I
thought you said, why was this a challenge for him? Why was it difficult for him?
So I'm saying the challenge was to go for the right reason.
Oh,
Not that I'm going to go in order to get all these goodies that were promised. I'm going because God told me to go, right? And that's more difficult, to be able to focus on why I'm going ahead to do that.
I mean, honestly, okay, if he was aware of God at 3 years old, by the age of 63, I said 3, by the age of 65, he was fully aware there is God, a power that he has to listen to. When someone tells you have to do this because it's the right thing, it's so much easier to do it than to come to the conclusion yourself whether it's the right thing, and no one confirms your feeling that that's the right thing, and pick up and go just because you think it's right, not because God told you. When God told you, it's an order. Just go.
Okay, and that's what he did. He wasn't going because I'll become a great nation, I'll become rich and famous.
That's not what I mean is he didn't come to this decision to live on your own because that was a rotten place and he had to live in a more holy place. God told him to do it. It's so much easier to follow somebody's order
Okay.
than to come to the conclusion that you have to move and no one forces you to do it, but you have to do it because you feel that.
So you're saying that it was not such a big test?
It wasn't such a.
It was not.
It was a test, of course, leaving the place of
Okay.
where you constantly
Okay.
to a new place is always.
Okay, so Ali, you want to argue that the actual listening was not such a
big deal. As
okay. So that's why I'm adding that perhaps maybe the actual listening wasn't, but why is he going? Am I going for the bounty? Okay. Okay, I hear that. Yes, Cheryl.
Well, that was his nature anyway. And
Meaning?
because when it came to the Akedah, he never questioned either.
Okay. Okay. So that's okay. So you're saying, well, that was his nature. We see by the Akedah that he didn't question. So that's I think that's an interesting point to be made on that, though. And this is an important concept. Nisayon, the tests that God gives us, it's not, all right, can you answer these questions? Yes, you passed the test. A test is meant to do the following. The Hebrew word for test it's not even test. The Hebrew word is nisayon. What is the root of the word nisayon? Nes, right? Which means either miracle or to right, a lifting up. Meaning a challenge is there for you to become stronger and different, as changed, somewhat self-actualized as a result of that. So it's not that, God knows if he's going to listen or not. No, he'll become a different person. And each of these nisyanot that he had, that's a nes, a miracle, meaning we're taking something that's latent, that's not yet evident, and we are bringing that into play, making that happen, internalizing that and transforming ourselves into that. Now, according to that understanding, we can't say, well, that was his nature. We see in the 10th, right? Perhaps that it was this test and those that followed that enabled him to get to number 10. We couldn't just, scramble the deck and have him do this one first. Let's have the 10th, the 2nd, and the 3rd, the 7th, and the 8th. No. This was a progression. And therefore, we can't say, well, we saw he had the ability in number 10, that's why he could do it over here. No, on the contrary, I think we would say this is what gave him that ability, and the other 9 also, along with this, gave him that ability to come to that crescendo by the Akedah, and also to be able to follow in that situation.
And then we see later
Just
with
one second,
Sodom
Janet, just 1 second, Janet.
Still had this inner belief and
Yes,
A wheat
which was being
nation.
nurtured and was sprouting, and reached its full fruition, we'll say, by that Kedah. That's what I'd say. Yes, Janet.
And then we see in Sodom and Gomorrah that he does start questioning.
Yeah, that
Rabbi,
is true. Yes. Yes, Ora.
I see a different nuance here in the test, in that where he says he will make him into a great nation. I think this was a test to see what the motive would be if he would choose the goodies, and that's why he left, or he would choose to leave because he was told to leave.
Yeah.
So the test
Yeah.
is in the motive.
Yes. And actually, that's in the words, the Or HaChaim says, look, Vayom, we have two ways of discussing saying, right? There's Vayomer and Vayedaber, right? Vayomer, he said, Vayedaber, he spoke, is how often it's translated, right? But the way that it's often explained is Yom Amar is a softer way of speaking. Diber is a little more force to it. So our parsha began Vayomer Hashem el Avram. It was a soft speak, right? Because leave, but you're going to get all the goodies. Then what does it say? Vayelech Avram, not kasher Amar Elav Hashem in verse 4. And Avram went not like God Amar, but kasher Diber, which again is that harsher speak, meaning that he wasn't going for the soft goodies that accompanied Vayomer Hashem that God said to him. But he went because God had spoken. God spoke, I do it, right? Putting aside all of the other goodies. Let's jump to, let's jump further in our parsha. We have a very, very an interesting philosophical debate between different commentators here. And I think it also applies to what's going on today in Israel in a certain way. Let's go to page 68. Avram has this frightening dream, right? Those who don't have the stone chumash were in Perek Tetvav, Pasuk Yud Gimel, chapter 15, verse 13. Vayomer la'Avram, and God said to Avram in this dream, Yadoa Teda, know you shall know, Ki Geria Zaracha be'eretz lo lahem. Your children will be aliens, foreigners, in a land that is not theirs. Va'avadum, and they will serve them. V'inu otam, and they will be oppressed. Arba me'ot shana, 400 years, right? For 400 years, we were in Egypt for 210 years. The 400-year calculation begins with the birth of Yitzchak, the birth of Isaac. The Gamet Hagoy Asher Ya'avodu Dan Anochi. And that nation that they will work, whom they will be enslaved to, Dan Anochi. I will judge them. They will be held responsible. And afterwards they will go out with a great treasure. What is the great treasure that we left that we received upon leaving Egypt? Everything the Jews took with them in a physical sense, in a spiritual sense, the Torah. 49 days later, Mount Sinai, the Torah. That is the Rechush Gadol. But what Allah mentioned, all the goodies that we took with us, right? So that was because, right, it's compared to a kid works for you, right? And then after you give him a check. He doesn't want a check. It's a piece of paper. Give me some money, right? I want some coins. I want some bills. I don't want a check. right? So the Rechush Gadol was going to be the Torah, but it needed to be in a currency that they could appreciate already at that time. But the Gam es Hagoy Asher Yavodu Dan Anochi. Okay, the English doesn't go into this. I thought they might go into this. The fundamental question is, if this was a prophecy, if God told Avram, we're going to be enslaved and oppressed, then why would that nation be held responsible for it? This was a God-given directive, right? Did they have their free will? So,
Yes, within certain bounds.
okay, so Rambam, Maimonides' approach is that individual Egyptians didn't have to get involved in this. Yes, it had to happen, but individual Egyptians didn't have to be the ones who would do the oppressing, and therefore they would be held responsible for them choosing to be the ones who would cause this oppressing. Ramban, Nachmanides, says on the contrary, if there is a decree that it happens, then a person who steps up, the person who steps up to fulfill that decree should not be held responsible, should receive reward. They're the ones who stepped up to fulfill this God-given directive. So Ramban learns what you had mentioned, Esther, that they had overdone it. And that's why he said, Dan Anochi, I will judge. Why does God judge? God will judge how much should they have done and how much did they add on with their own malice. And actually, there are those that explain very beautifully, right? Later on, Moshe is going to go to Paro, right? Talking about this Egypt. And what's the first sign he's going to show? He's going to show to Paro? The staff will turn into a serpent, right? What happens when he does that? What happens with all the sorcerers of Egypt? What do? They do the same thing, right? They brought the pre-K kids, right? They do the same thing. So what was the point over there, right? The sound and light show was not all that impressive. You know, it's kind of like, oh, how do you do that? Whoa! If everyone can do it, it's not all that impressive. So some explain that Moshe was not coming to do a sound and light show over here. It wasn't to show, look at the magic that we can do. He was telling Paro, this is why you're going to be held responsible. You were meant to be a stick, and you turned into a snake. A stick is simply in the hands of the one who wields it. You were meant to be a stick, an extension of God's hand. That's what you were meant to be. And there are times that other nations, other peoples will be a stick that God uses. We'll come back to this in a bit. But they turned into a serpent. A snake takes on a life of its own. It's not just the person who's holding the snake, but it has its fangs, it has its venom. It takes on a life of its own. And Ramban says that is what they will be held responsible for. And Ramban says, whenever anyone even kills another person, our belief is that one person's bechira, free will, stops at the other person's nose. Meaning, I can't use my free will to cause you any harm, pain, death, unless it is that person's time to go. Now, not to say Ramban says, well, therefore, I walk into McDonald's with my AK-47 and I kill 10 people. It was their time to go. I'm just doing God's will, right? That is a psychopath, okay? Now, God did not tell you to do that. You chose to do that. You will be held responsible for that murder. But at the same time, and this is a hard concept for us to wrap our heads around and accept, at the same time, it was those people in the McDonald's example, it was their time to go. But you might say, but 1 second, Rabbi, the guy had free will, which meant he could have decided at the last moment, I'm not going to do this horrific act. So why is it that we hear about mass shootings in McDonald's? We never hear about mass chokings in McDonald's. Meaning, if that guy would have changed his mind and walked out, all those 10 people would have suddenly choked on their Big Mac simultaneously. We never hear about that happening. So if a person has free will, and he could have stopped doing it, and therefore, how can we never hear about those situations? And the understanding that I have in that is, as we know, Rambam speaks about this conundrum of free will and God's knowledge. How could God have knowledge if we have free will? And there are different ways of understanding. The Rambam leaves it as a paradox, which means we're not going to deal with that paradox now. But God knows if this person is going to utilize his free will to go through with it or not. And therefore, whoever was meant to meet their demise would be there at the time in that McDonald's. Whoever was not meant to meet their demise will decide to go to Burger King instead. Or we'll have left 5 minutes before, or we'll leave 10 minutes after. Now, just a couple of minutes, then we'll come back. Okay, Esther, okay? Coming back to this, and I want to bring it back as difficult, as painful and heart-wrenching as this is. The Or HaChaim quotes both the Ramban and the Rambam and says it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant that there was a decree. They didn't do it to fulfill God's decree. They did it for themselves. And that's why they're responsible. They weren't doing it for God's decree. Not like Rambam that not like Ramban, they'll be held responsible for that which they did extra. They'll be responsible for everything that they did. Because they were not doing this to fulfill God's decree. They were doing this for themselves, for their own bloodlust, whatever it might be. That's why they were doing it. Now,
Well, isn't that the definition of evil then?
yeah, doing it for that. Yes. It's hard to even talk about this, right? The news from Israel, and I have shielded myself from looking at images of the horrors that were done there. I have personal experience of having things in my mind that I wish I could get out of my mind, and I can't. And I made a conscious decision. I'm not adding more to that photo library. I'm not adding more to that. But just I mean, we're talking about infants. We're talking about, it's just it is it's such animalism, sickening animalistic behavior. At the same time, as we started with Lech Lecha, that every soul is sent on its journey. How long does each one of our souls, and remember, it's me'artzecha miladchem veit avicha, we're leaving home. Because we look at this world as this is all that is. This is life. So why would a person, what might a baby have done wrong, right, etc., etc. But the way that I try to look at it is, it's not what did the baby do wrong. It's perhaps hard to say it. What did the baby do right? Meaning, it left its home to this unnatural state, which is life here, physical life. It left its world of spirituality, the world of God, to come down to a world where God is hidden from us, and we need to work to find him. How much time does each person need? We believe in a concept called Gilgul, reincarnation. There are times that a person, and most of us, according to the Mekubalim, the Kabbalists, are back for some cleanup work, for some unfinished business. How long does a person need? That depends what that soul is about, what that soul is here for. Some need 120 years, some need 80 years, some need 20 years, some need 12 years, some need 12 months, some need 12 days. Who knows? There was a couple who reached out to Rav Moshe Feinstein of blessed memory, who was the preeminent posek, decider of Jewish law. And she kept getting pregnant and miscarrying, and it was emotionally taking its toll. And typically a religious couple won't go on birth control until they have at least one boy and one girl. But they were asking, the toll is just too much, can they go on birth control? And his response was, you should know that for whatever reason, and we can't know the reason, these are all souls who need that much of this world until they can go back to their place. And for whatever reason, you and your husband are the ones who are bringing that shleimut, that correction, that perfection, that completion to all of these souls. But if it's too much for you and it's taking such an emotional toll, then yes, you can go on birth control to prevent these pregnancies. We don't know. We don't know what. We don't know why. We don't know why it will have to be through such a brutal, why it would end in such a brutal manner. When Rabbi Akiva, for teaching Torah publicly, the Gemara in Brachos tells us, was caught by the Romans, and the death they decreed upon him was combing off, using iron combs to comb his flesh from his body. What's he doing? He's saying, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The Malachim are crying out in the heavens. The Talmud says, God, this is the Torah, this is the reward. And God says, quiet, you don't know the whole story. Ayin lo ra'ata. Even your eyes, even you are in the spiritual realm, the angels, you don't know all that awaits. You don't know the whole story. So, like I said, as difficult as this is to wrap our heads around, our belief is that every single person, the 1,400 holy people, because if a person dies al kiddush Hashem for being Jewish, sanctifying God's name, then that person reaches the highest place. And I'm personally saying Kaddish this entire year, every Kaddish for all of those people. The same way that when I have had my losses, I've said every Kaddish the entire year. I'm saying Kaddish the entire year, every single Kaddish that I can. I'm saying for all of those who perished. But our belief is that they were on their Lech Lecha journey, and their time had come to return to the loving embrace of Hashem, which has been compared to two children sharing a room. One of them wakes up and sees, my sibling's bed is empty. Oh no, is everything okay? And gets all nervous, all scared, and goes running to the parents' room to tell them. And then they see the child is there asleep in the loving embrace of the parents. And that's what happens when these sweet, 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 pure, innocent children, right? Their beds are empty here. They're in the loving embrace of Hashem. For whatever reason, that's all they needed in this world. Why it had to be through such a difficult thing. The angels asked the same questions. So there's nothing wrong in being troubled and being hurt by those thoughts. But their Lech Lecha journey was their Lech Lecha journey, and now they've gone back to the base Avicha, to the house of the parent.
Rabbi?
Rabbi, I just, after what you just said, so then with that understanding, maybe you can look at like all the young people who were killed at that festival, that music festival.
They're part of the 1400.
Well,
Yeah.
you can look at that a different way and just say they were killed for being Jewish, therefore they were raised to a high level, even though in this world they may not have been Shomer Shabbos or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah. That is correct.
And Rabbi, by that token, should we be saying Kaddish along with you, taking something on, like on Shabbos, or?
That's a personal decision everyone needs to make. I made that as a personal decision, and I know someone else who's also saying Kaddish. When he heard what I was doing, he said, "I also want to do that." That's a personal decision. I'm not going to tell everyone that's what you should or should not be doing. That's a personal decision everybody needs to.
But it's not prohibited. I mean, is that something that would then still have to
If
ask any?
if one's parents are alive, one should not be saying Kaddish without asking their permission. If one's parents are not alive, then one can decide to say Kaddish for different people. I often have been saying Kaddish for different people who didn't have people saying who didn't have those who be saying Kaddish for them. If one's parents are not alive, one can choose to say Kaddish for other people also. Yeah.
But you can only do it in a minyan.
Yes. Kaddish can only be said as part of a minyan, when one is at a minyan as part of a minyan. That's when Kaddish is said. It's a Davar Shabbat as it's called, and only said with the minyan. Okay, my friends, difficult times. We should hear Besorot, Tovot, Yeshuot, V'nechamot, good news, Yeshuot, redemption, Nechamot, consolation, comfort. And like I said, next week, right now the plan is I will be in Israel. I will not be here. So we will resume in 2 weeks' time. Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay.
Thank
How are
you.
you getting, do they open flights to Israel already?
El Al is flying. I don't know about other airlines.
Safe travels.
Thank you.